one of the things as I was thinking about a topic for our session today is just how challenging it is right now to be in the shoes that we're in, managing call centers and running call center operations, because we really are in a unique position. We're servicing multiple generations, multiple decades of people in the workforce right now. And there's a lot of emphasis on, moving towards a lot of the digital side of things and everything being automatic and AI and all that. But we still have to remember, we still have a significant portion of our population, for a lot of call centers anyway, that are the older generation, and maybe they aren't as technical and as up to date on how some of these new technologies work. So we're really in kind of what I talk to with a lot of my clients is we are in a unique position, but we have to serve our customers how they want to be served, not how it's convenient for us and not how we want to run the show, but how they want to be served. And that applies to not just, how we answer calls and, are we answering calls versus is it all online? Is it chat? Is it other tools, all the different channels that we have open? And a lot of people are moving towards, trying to shut down voice and that operation and moving to what is traditionally viewed more as some of the more efficient methods of interacting with customers and members and other people that we deal with. But, that may come in the future, but we're not there yet. And we're at a position where we really have to be open to work with people as they want to be, consulted with, and as we help them through situations, because we're really not in a one size fits all business as running call centers. And I know a lot of people are all about, efficiency and trying to standardize your processes and getting everything down to, a single way of doing things. But that's just really not where we're at right now in the overall business scene. A couple things that I think about when I think about the different generations, and especially I have a few clients that tend to deal with a pretty healthy number of people on the senior end of the spectrum, kind of like David's age, that are out there. And, we have to realize that, there's different things that we have to think about. So part of it is really training your agents on how to deal with the senior population. And part of that is the speed of conversation, how quickly we talk, how quickly we speak to them, and are we really listening for them to have questions and things that we may never think that someone would have a question about. A senior citizen may pop up with a question and have to have you walk them through something. The use of technical terms. That's another thing we have to really be thinking about. Who is our audience? Who are we speaking to? And what terms do we need to explain to someone? Even just basic Windows terms and, how to operate your computer and stuff. Sometimes, that's foreign to some of our audience and what we're doing. And the last thing they want to do is have to deal with someone that's talking over their head in technical terms. And then you really get down into the core here is how do they want to be served? Do they prefer, picking up the phone and calling someone, which by and large, our older generation still prefers a phone call. My parents, when they need help from their bank or whatever, they want to talk to someone. In fact, they'll get in the car and drive to the bank to sit across the desk from someone. Now, someone that's in the generations coming out of school now and into the workforce, what's the last thing they want to do? I'll wait for someone to give me the right answer on it. What's the last thing some of these younger folks want to do?
Go to the bank.
Go to the bank. They don't want to talk to anyone.
No, they don't want to talk to anyone.
They don't want to talk to anyone. They want to do it on their schedule at their time, and that's great. But we're in that unique situation where we really are ready to. We have to be able to serve all of them. We're really our current situation that we're dealing with, and our customer experience, and this is kind of a topic that I kind of connected in with this whole topic here today. And that some changes that I think are going on in the call center industry. And it used to be that you were operating a call center and you were kind of a certain point in the business model and you were dealing with a certain area. But right now, we really are focused more on the incomplete customer journey and that whole experience, and moving from just a single interaction to how do they understand, how do they deal with our company, our business as a whole. And so that means, direct connection between sales and service. In some cases, it means connecting in our systems and understanding what's going on in different areas, and that a call center agent can no longer just be trained on the little area of answering questions, but they have to know the product and they have to know the services. And it's partly due to the fact that we're in a time now where our customers are in a lot of cases more knowledgeable than our agents. And we have to realize that we have to constantly be training and working with our agents to bring them up to speed and get them up to speed on our products, because our customers expect it, and they don't expect to be more knowledgeable than the people they call on the phone to get help. And then connecting our systems, having real-time information between all the systems, and being able to know inventory levels before you place an order, or someone's allowed to order a product, and understand that. So it's a lot of interconnectivity between processes, between departments, between systems. So another thing I just wanted to mention that's kind of been jumping out there for me is all the new channels, including social media platforms, and again, moving from an agent dealing with a single call in the old days to having multiple platforms, multiple channels even open, multiple chat sessions. I mean, we have one client that we had a little struggle with, in training the agents, and they were really having trouble navigating between 2 to 3 chat sessions. And we reviewed a lot of the chats, and, there were comments being made that were obviously for the other chat. And so really, it's not just a no-brainer to think that you can just all of a sudden open up multiple channels and expect your agents to know how to deal with that and how to multitask effectively with a call center. So that's an area that I think people need to realize. That's a whole nother area of training, and how to juggle those and how to work with your technology to make it as obvious as possible of which instance that you're interacting with, which customer you're talking with at that moment. So that's one thing that I think's been going on. And then really the asynchronous versus synchronous interactions. So there are some cases where, an instant response isn't needed. They just need to submit something. And that's where typically the old, submit a ticket type thing and submit a case, came into play. But now even with some of the different tools, the ability to submit something and have a reasonable time period where someone's going to get back to you with the answer and continue that dialogue. So there's, allocating a certain number of your agents and all that into, how you handle that is, I think, a big thing going on. And then another area that's just kind of jumped out really in the last, I'd say, with the pandemic and just all the media attention on some of the cyber threats and the ransomware. And that's something that we work with all our agents, is you've got to really build that feeling of trust, especially with your senior customers, because they've got to know, they're not going to want to give you personal information. They're not going to want to do that. You have to have ways of really making sure they understand. I mean, I'm skeptical whenever I get on the phone and someone asks me for a piece of personal information, that I'm really talking to the right person. So I think going forward, just like almost all systems, including, the big one I worked with, Salesforce, just 2 weeks ago with the rollout of their latest release, are forcing multi-factor authentication. So that's something we're going to have to start thinking about in the call center world, is how do we verify and how do we validate that, give that customer a peace of mind that they are really talking to the right person. And so there's some tools and some things like that I think we'll be needing to explore and get there, because I think that's become a big issue for a lot of people out there that in dealing with customers. And I deal with a lot of healthcare clients and their health information and all that. And that's a challenge. I think it's going to be probably, if I were to pick one area that's going to be our biggest challenge and headache for 2022, that's going to be one of the topics that we're going to have to deal with, is how do we validate ourselves as professionals on the other end of the phone or a chat session or an email, that we're really and it's also, we've got a certain liability too. And we ran into this at one of my call centers, that someone actually called and was trying to manipulate someone's insurance policies. And then we fortunately stopped it, because they weren't able to validate everything. We found out that the the customer has a restraining order against her ex-husband, and he was trying to cancel policies. And I mean, if we had canceled without really going through the proper authorization, so I think that's going to be an issue. I think people are getting a lot more clever on how they try to fool people and the fraud. And so that whole area, I think, is going to be something that's going to pop up. Well, and just a comment about the chat, and I'm sure everyone knows this, but chat's kind of a different world from email and voice and other ways. I mean, not chat, SMS texting is. So I think, it's really critical. The laws in the US are totally different for SMS texting, that you have explicit permission before you start texting people. And, when you roll out, that can cause a delay, and like some of our new, member sign up programs, we have paragraphs in there authorizing texting now, so that we can get that permission right up front when they sign up. But if you've got a large historical customer base, you have to go through a process to get permission before you start sending text to them. And unfortunately, there are actually people out there and companies out there, if you want to call them a company, that go after trying to find people who are violating that and then sue them, offer to sue on behalf of people. And so it's a mess right now. And just a word of caution on the texting, that be very careful and make sure you have explicit permission before you authorize. And you absolutely have to have the opt-out option on every single text you send them. I think texting is becoming more of a tool that people are using. The younger generation, that's how they communicate. And leaving voicemail messages, if you have a bad payment on an account or something, they don't listen to voicemail anymore. And so I think texting is kind of where we're going to have to start shifting a lot of our attention, going forward for those type of interactions. Because if you launch into it and just start texting people, you can get yourself in some legal trouble and financial trouble with that. So I think just kind of finally, just a few additional thoughts there. As we become more complex, I found with a lot of my clients, we're spending a lot more effort on retaining trained, knowledgeable agents. It used to be that you could bring someone new on and bring them up to speed pretty quickly, onboard them in maybe in a few days of training to take basic calls. And now with things being more complex and more interconnected and having a lot more information they need to know about your business and your services, we're really focusing on let's keep the good ones and make sure we keep them. And that may result in having to pay more, maybe having retention bonuses, things of that sort. And then, another thought here on the how to leverage your agents. One of the things when I first went to work for Disney, I was running one of their IT support call centers, and I inherited a group that was about 30 or so people initially, and they were all certified Microsoft engineers, making $30, $40 an hour, and this was 25 years ago. So we really had to change the structure there, and we introduced the multi-tiers and multi-levels. And in order to really leverage kind of the lower end entry-level agents, it's really important that they not be left alone, that they have that support. So in my model for if it's an outsourced call center, I'll have a level one agents taking that inbound call and diagnosing and triaging and doing, solving maybe 70, 80% of the issues. And then I have their supervisor, their team lead that they can turn to for problems and issues. And then we have what we call the level three that's back at my client companies that are the experts, and if something really gets escalated, we have to deal with that. And then they're all interconnected, whether it's through Ring Central or Teams chat, to where they're able to support each other. And so creating structures like that to where you've got that support network in there, and you're not leaving your level one agents out there to kind of figure it out on their own, is I think really critical going forward for call centers, and especially that we're struggling trying to keep employees and hire people. And then last thing here, a lot of folks do some sensitivity training for how do you deal with seniors, and it's something as simple as you're talking to someone and you're providing their account number, or you're taking a financial transaction and getting a credit card number. And some of the people, especially seniors, they want to repeat every 4 digits. And, you have to train your people to be ready for that so that you're not talking over each other when you're trying to exchange information. And so it may be that, if you've got someone on the phone that sounds like they may be a little less technical, that you pause after you give them the first few digits of the phone number to see if they're going to say, some of them will repeat it back to you right then. Some of them will, not. And then you can proceed. But it's just sensitivity to things like that and how we deal with different generations as we're working with them in the call center.